This is rated by netizens as the best dinosaur documentary currently. The Prehistoric Planet, created by the director of Iron Man and a well-known BBC team using the latest technology, perfectly restores the most charming dinosaur era of the Cretaceous period. A Tyrannosaurus rex is swimming in the sea with a hollow skeleton, and its strong hind limbs made Tyrannosaurus rex a well-deserved swimming master. This Tyrannosaurus rex took his cubs across the ocean to find prey on new islands. Suddenly, a Spinosaurus that was twice as big as Tyrannosaurus rex suddenly appeared. Although the adult Tyrannosaurus rex could still protect themselves in water, young ones could easily become prey. In this cruel world, even the land overlords could do nothing about it. Only 4 of the original 15 cubs survived. Fortunately, they soon discovered a 2-ton giant turtle. Its powerful jaws provided it with a bite force of more than 5 tons, which could easily tear the turtle's belly apart to enjoy a feast of turtle meat. At this time, the hatchlings were eager to take a bite. Delicious, but the adult Tyrannosaurus had no intention of sharing this meal with the young. They must learn to hunt on their own. Soon, a group of baby turtles hatched from the beach, which became the perfect opportunity for the young dragons to practice hunting. On the opposite coast, a special group of tapejarid pterosaurs raised their offspring here and carefully protected their young. At this time, a huge Quetzalcoatlus suddenly broke into the beach and tried to capture a lonely baby. Some of them were not adapted to life on land. The pterosaurs built their nests on safer cliffs. A group of newly born istiodactylid pterosaurs. Their first instinct after birth was to climb the cliff to prepare for their first flight. 90% of the air in their bones was also very conducive to their learning to fly, but soon they encountered an Arambordiania pterosaur. The only way to avoid danger was to fold its wings and descend rapidly, but it was difficult to reach the forest quickly at such a height. Some young dragons became food for predators. After going through all kinds of difficulties, the first wave of survivors arrived at the refuge. Over the next 5 years, the forest would become their home, providing them with geckos and food. When they grew up, they could join the ranks of adult pterosaurs in the vast deep sea, reaching a length of 9 meters. The female plesiosaur was rushing to the coast with her 6-month-old cub. Since plesiosaurs could only give birth to 1 cub every 2 years, they regarded protecting their cubs as their top priority. They had traveled thousands of miles to come to this sea area precisely to swallow the smooth pebbles here, to help them not break up the undigested food. After repeated practice, the baby plesiosaur also successfully swallowed the pebbles, which also represented that it had entered adulthood and returned to the sea under another coral island. A huge Shastasaurus was enjoying the cleaning service provided by Xiphactinus, but when it surfaced to breathe fresh air, it was suddenly attacked by another young Shastasaurus who came to compete for this territory. 2 huge Shastasaurus were there. A fierce fight broke out on the bottom of the sea. Although the young Shastasaurus's body was more dominant, the older Shastasaurus had richer combat experience. It quickly rushed out of the sea to take a breath, and then threw the young Shastasaurus into the deep sea. In this way, the intruder was finally driven away. The plesiosaur group drowned it and successfully saved its territory before returning to the sea. A female plesiosaur who was in poor health broke away from the group and became a target for predators. The dangerous hunter behind her was approaching it. Soon, the group of plesiosaurs discovered this Deinosuchus that broke into the group. With their concerted efforts, they finally drove away this dangerous hunter. It turned out that this weak female plesiosaur had discovered her new baby. The cub was only 3 meters long. It followed its mother and swam to the sea surface to take its first breath after birth. In the desolate western South America, one of the largest dinosaurs on Earth, the Argentinosaurus was looking for a suitable mate. Their huge necks were filled with air. The inflated airbags supported by the light skeleton were their method of courtship. Today, this male dragon that had always occupied the best courtship position would usher in a young challenger. The huge neck seemed to be slow, but it was a very powerful impact of the tail that provided them with strong support. but their huge body quickly exhausted them. It would be a battle of endurance. Although the young Argentinosaurus was slightly smaller, its physical strength gave it the upper hand. It was as sharp as a dagger with its thumb. The sharp thorns pulled out the opponent and nourished the opponent's skin with the sharp teeth. He swung his strong neck to give the opponent a fatal blow. Finally, the battle-hardened old dragon ended his rule. The young Argentinosaurus took the center stage. For some Argentinosaurus, failure often meant death. The corpses everywhere also illustrated the cruelty of the dinosaur world. On the other side of the desert, a dead Isosaurus was a feast for many animals, but they dared not approach it because there was a group of Tarbosaurus lying nearby. Their status in this desert was like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. A velociraptor that appeared next to it was eyeing the delicious little lizard. With a lightning-fast attack, the little lizard became its prey. At the same time, the velociraptor discovered another lizard. The smart little lizard immediately got under the Tarbosaurus. The reckless velociraptor accidentally alerted the desert overlord Tarbosaurus. The Tarbosaurus group was also awakened by the movement here. The frightened velociraptor quickly ran away. After the group of Tarbosaurus left, the pterosaurs could enjoy the remaining delicious food. Seizing the fleeting opportunity was the key to survival in the desert. Such was the survival of Mononychus. As the ancestor of birds, Mononychus quickly discovered the termite nest, with its highly sensitive directional hearing, used its sharp giant claws to throw away the wood, and used its flexible tongue to enjoy a protein-rich meal. As the cool mountains wind blew in and mixed with the rising hot air, a desert storm brought long-awaited heavy rains. The Mononychids hid in caves to prevent their feathers from getting wet. This rain brought huge changes to the desert. Within a few days, various plants grew, which meant the arrival of more abundant food. But the high temperature would soon evaporate the water and return to the dry land. Large dinosaurs were constantly migrating, trying to cope with these harsh environments. This group of Barosaurus finally found a water source after a long journey. The flowing rainwater gathered here to form a small oasis, attracting dinosaurs from dozens of kilometers around, including the huge Mongolian titanosaurs. Their super long necks allowed them to easily pass over other dinosaurs when drinking water, eliminating the trouble of queuing up. However, such a gathering could easily attract the attention of predators. The arrival of a Tarbosaurus made other dinosaurs give in, but it only came here to drink water. It only enjoyed VIP treatment. As these thirsty dinosaurs drank water day and night, the water in the oasis quickly dried up, and the dinosaurs dispersed. The harsh and arid environment returned again. But there was another huge pterosaur living in the canyon. Babaridactylus pterosaurs relied on their 5-meter wingspan to use thermal airflow to easily fly extremely long distances, providing them with a safe landing site. Thousands of pterosaurs gathered here. The larger male pterosaurs would gather here while begging for hunger, also driving away the invading challengers. 2 huge male pterosaurs launched a fierce chase in the air. The loser fell off the cliff and paid the price with his life. Only the winner was qualified to beg for hunger. Edmontosaurus were a kind of small hadrosaurs that could survive even in drier deserts. When the area reached the extremely dry season, all vegetation would wither and die. Some older and more experienced Edmontosaurs might remember other potential food and water sources located. In order to cross the scorching desert, they could only choose to travel at night. Like many migratory animals, Edmontosaurus could also identify road signs made of celestial bodies, which would lead them through this ever-changing desert. After a long journey of dozens of kilometers, they finally saw the hope that the fog from the ocean would form water droplets on them, meaning that the oasis formed by the fog in front of them was the destination of their journey. Most of North America was covered by dense forests and accompanied by fierce storms and torrential downpours. Although one of the largest ceratopsians lived here, they were the prey of Tyrannosaurus rex. This male Tyrannosaurus had just killed a Triceratops, but left deep scars on Tyrannosaurus rex in the process. Tyrannosaurus was specially designed to prey on large ceratopsians. Although many ceratopsians had evolved heavy defensive weapons, They were still unable to withstand the attacks of the dinosaur overlords. Decades of fighting had left this Tyrannosaurus Rex covered in bruises and even lost a section of its tail. The second wound was obviously more serious and was very likely to lead to death due to wound infection. It decided to clean the wound with river water to ensure that it would survive. Unfortunately, a younger female Tyrannosaurus Rex broke into its territory. It kept responding to the intrusion. The male gave a warning, but the other party did not flinch. The male made it clear that he did not want to fight and wanted her to be a partner. The female seemed to agree. She vibrated her throat and made the same purring sound. Tyrannosaurus Rex was very sensitive to the touch of the cheek, which meant that soon after, their courtship was successful. Then they would give birth to their own offspring. Deep in the feather forest of South Africa lived the largest flying animal on Earth, a giant Aramborgiania pterosaur, over 9 meters long. It came here for a special reason. The small island formed by growing on the seawater was exactly the right place for it to lay its eggs. Aramborgiania pterosaurs were undoubtedly masters of flight, but they also had good fighting ability on the ground. The fingers on their wings allowed them to walk on land. A female pterosaur chose to lay eggs on moist soil. This could prevent its soft-shelled eggs from drying out. She would lay about 12 1-kilogram eggs over the next 3 weeks. This process would exhaust her. After covering them with plants, she would be forced to look for prey elsewhere to replenish her energy. Shortly after leaving, an older female Aramborgiania pterosaur came. She was also looking for a safe place to lay her eggs. Obviously, there was not enough food to feed 2 litters of cubs, so she did not hesitate to bite the dinosaur eggs after all. Eggs were very nutritious. Just then, the owner of the eggs rushed back. She was heartbroken and angry and rushed to fight the intruders. Eventually, the intruders were driven away, but her clutch had been completely destroyed. Fortunately, there were still 3 eggs left. After surviving, she must try her best to keep this last hope. In the lower reaches of the river, there lived baryonyx that fed on crabs. They used their dense and sharp teeth to hunt multi-legged crabs to provide rich protein. A newborn cub could only survive on leftover food. The delicious crab aroused the hunting instinct of one cub, but it ignored the mother's warning and ran farther and farther. Suddenly, a huge Dinosuchus burst out of the water, swallowing the baryonyx cub into its mouth in one bite. Although these sandbars were rich and dense, survival here also came at a high price. At the mouth of the river, the large amount of sediment brought by the river provided abundant food for countless fish schools. The elasmosaurs from the ocean dived into the rivers and lurked in the murky waters to prey on the gathering fish. The river gave them a final gift until their traces finally disappeared in the oceans of this prehistoric planet. In the cold Arctic region, there was one of the most powerful predators. This long-haired Nanuqsaurus belonged to the same tyrannosaurid superfamily as Tyrannosaurus rex. Its prey was this group of 2-ton Pachyrhinosaurus. Their huge and hard-armored head was their weapon, but ambush and surprise attack alone could not determine the outcome. The nervous Pachyrhinosaurus tactically retreated into the open area. The Nanuqsaurus followed closely. On the vast ice field, the Pachyrhinosaurus were able to unite their armored heads and muscles to form an impenetrable wall. As the blizzard intensified, this tense stalemate might last for days, but as long as the Pachyrhinosaurus stuck together, they could stay safe, and the Nanuqsaurus were waiting for their chance. As soon as a Pachyrhinosaurus escaped its defensive position, panic spread quickly. The entire Pachyrhinosaurus group fled in all directions, which also gave the Nanuqsaurus an opportunity to take advantage of. Soon, an exhausted Pachyrhinosaurus broke away from the group. Facing the besieging ice and snow overlord, the Pachyrhinosaurus could only let it be slaughtered completely. The dark time would last throughout the winter. This was the most difficult life state in the polar regions. When the sun rose for the first time in nearly 3 months, a group of hadrosaurs were crossing the dangerous glacier, while the Nanuqsaurus next to them were eyeing their young. The panic of the cubs plunged the hadrosaur group into chaos. One of the cubs was unfortunately left behind and was swept into the fast-flowing river. The mother was distraught on the bank. Fortunately, the little hadrosaur struggled hard and finally escaped and returned to the group. But the river also left behind the collapsed Nanooksaurus. There would always be unexpected casualties during the crossing. This would also become a rare feast for them. The cold polar region had finally ushered in spring. At the lower end of the river, the bear-like Pachyrhinosaurus were preparing their nests to attract mates. When the female Pachyrhinosaurus had no space left for her, she could only choose the edge of the island. But the more difficult step in building a nest was to obtain the branches used to keep the eggs warm. This smart Pachyrhinosaurus stole the branches of its neighbors, the fruits of their labor, but they were soon caught by the nest owner. In the colder north, a group of crested hadrosaurs were heading to the largest volcanic area on Earth, an area with a harsh environment and full of dangers, but they had to return there every year to build their nests. The warm volcanic sand became the best incubator for them. In a few weeks, the pups would hatch. They would bring back a lot of food to raise the pups here, since this was the short but abundant summer, when the pups could enjoy the abundance. As the weather got hotter, these volcanic wetlands also allowed mosquitoes to multiply rapidly and suck the blood of the babies unscrupulously, and they might even die from excessive blood loss. In the end, the hadrosaurs were forced to leave here, and some of the babies that could not keep up would die. Mothers would abandon them. The strong winds high on the hillside could prevent mosquitoes from invading, but they lost 90% of their babies every year. But even the rich summer was often accompanied by crises. Fierce lightning ignited dry areas. The whole forest was on fire, and the dinosaurs would flee from it. But this was a rare opportunity for Troodon, one of the smartest dinosaurs. With their keen eyesight, they could see everything even in this smoky darkness. It would stay on the edge of the fire and hunt down dinosaurs trying to escape the fire. Once it found a fire that could be used, it would continue to use it to force the fire, greatly improving the success rate of hunting. If the dinosaurs had not become extinct, Troodon might have evolved into the first group of tool users. A perfect hunting success by the highly intelligent dinosaurians was also accompanied by the end of the short summer. Before the arrival of the months-long dark winter, the ankylosaurs had to find a warm cave to spend the cold and long winter. They returned to last year's nest. But their size was no longer what it used to be. The nest was not enough to contain the brotherhood between them. The smallest one was excluded. It must find a new territory, but this was a dangerous road. Fortunately, it was lucky to find a huge cave where the temperature was enough for it to survive the entire winter. In a North American area covered by plants and trees, Triceratops was one of the largest dinosaurs. It could reach a length of 8 meters. It had a huge bony frill on its head that could be activated during a fight to protect themselves. And these plants also had defense mechanisms. They released poisonous substances, which were especially dangerous for baby dinosaurs. But Triceratops also had a special antidote to deal with these toxins. They would go to a cave that was out of reach and walk along a passage to find the place where the antidote was. This baby cub had never been here before. It must stay close to its family, but not too close. Otherwise, it might be accidentally stepped on. In the end, the poor little Triceratops broke away from the group and was abandoned in this dark and unfamiliar cave, lost. Fortunately, it successfully found the tribe through sounds and smells. A special kind of soil here was the antidote they needed. After filling their stomachs with soil, they would no longer be harmed by toxins. On the distant coast, because the plants here were constantly splashed by the waves, it was a source of salt that dinosaurs liked. Here, sauropod dinosaurs could get together. They caressed each other, rekindling family relationships and creating new family members. But for Aramborgiania pterosaurs, this forest and beach were just a takeoff point. Now they would wave their wings to another wider forest, which might be richer than any place on our prehistoric planet. And what kind of story would they write? What chapter would it be? This documentary, Prehistoric Planet, was produced by the archaeological team after 8 years of research and 2 years by the special effects team. Every detail was carefully considered based on the most cutting-edge archaeological science, down to the quality and quantity of a tooth, the cycle and distribution logic of shedding and replacement, the color of each feather, the texture of each skin, and even the habits of each dinosaur were all deduced and restored to create the gorgeous and lifelike beauty we see now, while also injecting weight and soul into prehistoric stories separated from us by millions of years.